Now, I read somewhere that something happened when, in terms of your music and your feeling for the music, that something happened when you were around 13 or 14 that made it different for you.
Yeah. I found the Lord when I was like 14 years old. And, please, I really understood what my parents were talking about at the time, you know. And my mother was dead. I just found Jesus for myself. And I knew what it was like to trust in him. And, you know, because people can be so, I don't think they really sometimes mean to be, but they can be very distant and very mean and very whatever. You know, kids are always the worst people. Kids in the world, you know, they can be bad and mean. Mm-hmm. And I found out for myself. We used to have revivals all the time at our church, and we had a guy named, I never forget, Reverend Otis. And he was preaching on a Tuesday night. And we could go, you know, church anytime we wanted to. And my father and everybody was there, and I went with that. When I just, the Holy Spirit came over me, and I didn't know what was happening to me, you know. But since then, I was changed, you know. I was just changed and wanted to sing and wanted to tell people about it, all that kind of stuff, you know. Not that I stopped doing it every day as I got bigger, you know. But once you find him, it's nothing like it.
And was it a surprise to you when it happened? I mean,
it was, because I don't know, I've been in my church all my life, and I always loved the Lord because I was taught to love the Lord. That was what we were taught. But it's different when you find him a reason to love him for yourself. You know, he had been my mother, had been my all of that, you know. So brought me through some little, you know, things that I had done and decided to do myself, you know. He had always looked out for me. Mm-hmm. And I know it had to be him. Mm-hmm.
So that can happen, that kind of experience could happen for you, even though it wasn't necessarily a response to a crisis, an immediate crisis or anything like that.
It wasn't a response to any of that.
It just, that was the time.
That was the time. He was preaching, and it was so fiery and so, you know, got next to me, so it just went off. You know, and that's the only way I can explain it, because I'm not saying I really knew so much about, you know, but I know from then on I wanted to know more.
And how has that affected your life since then?
It has affected my life tremendously. It has been the only thing that in this life that I could rely on.
Was that closeness to God?
Yes. And no matter what, I have been able to make it through, because I kept him prevalent and first. And no matter, you know, everything I do, I tried to, you know, my kids, I tried to tell them. Of course, they weren't always listening, but it was not because they weren't there. When I went to church, they went. It wasn't as extensive as my parents were, because, you know, a chance have changed it. But I went to rehearsal, and I went to church on Sunday, or a function that I thought maybe they might enjoy. You know, they were there with me. I didn't just leave my kids anyway, you know. If I didn't have them, their father had them, you know. Mm-hmm. So.
And that grounding in the church and
yes.
that relationship with God mm-hmm. was something that has been so central to you,
right.
that you've always wanted that to be part of your children's lives.
Yes, for sure.
And it sounds as if there could have been conflicts developing, in the sense of, on the one hand, you had this growing special closeness to God, mm-hmm. and on the other hand, you were headed in a direction where your talents and your voice were taking you in a very different direction.
Right. But I found that is not, God isn't here. He's not somebody going to tell you, don't, you know, do that kind of thing. He gives you a talent to use for his Now, his benefit doesn't necessarily mean the church. It means for the goodness of your life and own him anywhere, I say. You know, and when people say you serve two gods, I think they have a problem because I know there isn't but one. So I never paid much attention to that. And I had been scorned for, you know, doing things like that. But it bothered me only for a while because I always talked to him and prayed and know that I was, you know, I wasn't doing the carousing and all. I went to work to try to take care of my children and give them an education and that kind of thing. So I really wasn't really worried about what other people said. Even in my church, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I went through that there. But God made it all right, you know, and I just went through the storm.
And came out the other side.
Came out the other side.